Welcome to Proud Product Peeps. Our guest today is Joachim Platzbarsdies, a product leader as a service at Metal AB. Joachim loves building strong, collaborative teams to deliver value via products and services, spending time with family, practicing Aikido with his 3 boys, and making music.
Welcome to another episode of Proud Product Peeps. Today I have Joachim Platzbarsdies. I always get his last name wrong, and we were just working on it leading into this, and then I messed it up in my head. But welcome to the show, Joachim.
Thanks, Justin. And it's you can be excused because you always used to call me platypus, and you haven't had the practice, so that's fine. As long as I know who you're talking to.
Joachim P. Yes.
Exactly.
I love platypuses, so it worked out really well. Hey, before we get into this, I have a bone to pick with you. I guess technically it's more of cauliflower to pick with you. You took me to my first, you're a vegan, you took me to my first vegan restaurant. And you're like, this place is amazing. It was in Stockholm near the office. I later learned that it wasn't your favorite vegan restaurant. So what was up with that?
Well, to be honest, it used to be. And you were going to take me to a new vegan restaurant, well, you didn't. So I went there myself, and that's not my favorite. So that was lucky. Anyway, so good thing you mentioned it, because I want to give a shout out to Martins Gröna, where I took you, which actually absolutely was. But it was wiped out with COVID and all those different things. So technically, yes, you're right. That isn't anymore my favorite vegan restaurant because it's not here. So rest in peace with that. But then my other vegan, my new favorite, which has been around for a long time too, is Herman's. It's on Fjällgatan, overlooking the Salt Lake and overlooking the fun fair Gröna Lund. Great views, great food, and you gotta go. If you haven't been, you gotta go.
I mean, you brought me there and you're like, what do you want? I'm like, can you please just order for me? I don't know. And it was good. It was really good. We had to clean up our own plates afterwards, which makes sense. And I wasn't too offended as an American. Usually as an American, we just leave the plates on the table. But I was willing to accommodate the Swedish culture.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Hey, I wanted to talk to you because you went through a transformation from being in engineering. And in 2016, we moved you over to be a product manager. And initially, I would say nicely that you were a bit polarizing because you were still trying to, in some ways, be an engineer, check progress, make sure that things were getting done, and not as much really focusing on what a product manager should be doing, which is not just seeing and identifying what we should do now, but what does it look like going forward, talking to customers and all that stuff. And I wanted to really talk through what that transformation was like for you.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I mean, it was a big challenge, moving out of being on the delivery side, on the engineering side, and then moving over to the strategy side, for sure. And I've been thinking about that over the years, of course, and from my perspective, definitely understand everything that happened and how that could have been done differently and better, if you will. And there's many sides to that, I'd say. And if you look to other transitions that I've been reading about, just from heading from product management to, for example, product leadership, from an individual contributor over to being a leader, that's also very difficult. And I think I've seen examples of that in my career as well, where you fall back on what you know. And of course, if you are used to deliver some kind of value and now you don't really know how to, you're going to fall back into your own treads on your old tracks, and if you're not careful. So one thing that I really appreciated was when I was sent to this pragmatic marketing course, the foundations and all those 3, to actually know this is what we expect, this is what you're supposed to be doing, this is how we do things, and that added clarity for me. That was really, really good. No, so but to come back to the main important thing is, don't stress it so much. Just be in the moment and try to figure out what are my next steps, and that you're not delivering value shouldn't be something that you're worried about. And I guess that's a part of the, the transition. Have someone to hold the hand and so on would have been good. But we're a distributed team, and I guess not everyone was equipped to help out on that.
Yeah, and you and I have the memory of when we first had the conversation, and in retrospect, I think it was a sign of the times that we should have been aware of. It was early November 2016, the day after the
Yeah, yeah.
U.S. election.
Oh
We were
God.
in the Globe or
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah. It was. Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
in the Globe right after our user conference for that day. You and I were having our first chat about you potentially moving over to be a product manager.
yeah,
And all of a sudden we heard this really loud noise, and we look outside, and all of the snow had just fallen off of the roof because it
yeah.
snowed a ton that day. And it
Yes.
was unusual for early November. And all the snow came off the roof, loud noise. I assume nobody was hurt underneath, but maybe we should have looked at that as a little bit of a prelude to,
What was to
what
come?
was going to happen. Yeah, not just in the world, but with you moving
Yeah,
over to
yeah,
PM.
yeah. No,
You remember
I
that?
yeah, I do. For sure, that was a pivotal moment for many people. I mean, as the election going the way it did. Well, the snow, as far as I know, didn't hit anyone, but that was a lot of snow for Sweden at all at one single time. So now I remember it clearly, and yeah. But from my perspective, transformation is I think it's good. I mean, to move out of the status quo. It won't always take the route that you expect, and sometimes for the worse. But hey, when you are in transformation, you have the ability to help and steer where it goes. And if you have a clear mind and a clear goal, you can help it get there.
Okay, Mr. Platypus, this show is about being proud. What, makes people proud? So I
Yeah.
guess, moving on from that, I'm curious, considering this is the focus of the show, what has made you most proud personally in your career? I find it fascinating hearing from a variety of different individuals the lens that they go through and what makes them proud. What has made you proud, Mr. Joachim?
I think that's a really good question, and I like the president of the show. That is the president and the president of the show. That you can stop for a while and make sure that you don't just look at that. What can we do better? But what did we actually do well, and what can we celebrate? And I'm currently actually in a mode where I'm trying to celebrate every single milestone and celebrate early because hey, you never know if you're going to get to celebrate otherwise, right? You never know what's around the corner. So just make sure that you appreciate, you celebrate, and you move forward. And even if it didn't go as you planned, I mean, the effort and whatever you put into it is still worth recognizing. So I think with the attitude, that's what counts. And that kind of ties me into what I'm proud about. I mean, there's some tangible things that I do have as examples. Like when we were at Episerver, we had the personalized find release that was, kind of tricky to get out the door. And I was running around chasing to try to tie all these ends up and make sure that we actually got it out the door as planned. So that was one part, but that's one milestone. So from my perspective, what I'm proud of is maybe like you mentioned, is actually managing to get through this transformation that you talk about, and also moving from kind of an introvert kind of developer role where you focus on small tangible deliverables that build up to greater whole, to then moving into product management, facing customers, facing product needs and all those bits. And then when I left Epic, moving into the C-suite of a smaller securities firm in finance, and then understanding the whole company goals and vision. And I brought a lot with me from Epic. You had installed this notion of not just epics and stories, but over that you had initiatives that encapsulated that, and that was reflecting the goals of the company, which was great in my view, because then you had the vision, you had everything saturating what we were doing and why, and you can always track, like the subtask. You could technically track it up to how does this support the goal that we have, and then make an understanding in there. So then bringing that in and managing to also do that in my new environment, and also building a strong team of people that I knew were really talented, also extending that over to an offshoring team and creating teams that are transcending boundaries of geography, and also because being in the finance and securities, then you have a whole different range of compliance aspects that you need to do. You can access, different production environments, etc., etc., to build that. I mean, I'm super proud of managing to be a part of that and putting that into place. But at the end of the day, I think it's just these things that transcend these individual milestones, which is just, I'm proud of being a part of delivering products, value, teams, making life a good place to be, like the world a good place to be for the people who are involved. I think that's my proud thing.
So it's interesting. I mean, I think you bring up the micro, macro, or the the tangibles of a milestone, and then the macro of like, okay, you're going to this North metric, or you're trying to go to these pieces. We focus so much on the outcomes and individual goals, and I think that you kind of tied it up all in there. You're proud of the individual goals as well as like the macro outcomes, but I also picked out a piece of what you're saying of of being involved in a team and learning how to become a strong team player and a team leader. Maybe expand upon that a little bit, because again, the micro pieces of the individual goals make sense because those are the tangibles. The macro, you reached a certain level of ARR, but if we're entirely measured off of those elements, it becomes a little bit difficult. Expand upon the being part of a team and being a team leader and helping to achieve as a collective.
Yeah, no, that's really one of the tangible things actually that is the gift that keeps on giving. In contrast to being an individual contributor that had lost, the previous proficiency and trying to move into a new proficiency, and thereby also causing all kinds of confusion along the way. And Jonas, I'm sorry if you're listening. I'm sorry. But
this is about mea culpas and offering apologies. So maybe it's the "I'm sorry" product peeps.
Exactly. Okay, that's a different one. So when actually having the opportunity, then after building a team, and our entire team moved over to a new business where there was a team already with a process and a bunch of different individuals that had a lot of talent that was pretty untapped at the moment. So in that respect, to study for this, like I tried to listen to podcasts, like to figure out how do I become a good leader or manager or all these different things, and the key is in humans, and coming from a point where the humans were not relevant, where bits and bytes and binaries, where that was the relevant stuff, to moving into very far from that, where humans and interaction and synergizing on different, like, diverse skill sets is the key. And then listening to
Sorry, that was McKenna calling. She's getting married in 6 weeks, but I'll call her back. Don't worry. You're more important right now. Sorry, McKenna.
That's a misprioritization, but I'll let it pass for now. Yeah, that's so cool, by the way. And so big congratulations, man. So yeah, so in some of these examples, that it's super great, where when someone brings you a problem, right? And that actually happened. Someone brings me a problem and tells me these are two things that I need to figure out, and the only question I need to ask, like, what do you think we should do? And it's like, of course. And they go and do it because they know the answer. They come to me to get validation, but the validation is already there. The trust, I'll solve the problems, I'll remove the obstacles. But to give this agency and to give this trust in yourself, and I saw that in many different aspects. There was so many good ideas and so much untapped talent, and so small adjustments that needed to be made, and allowances, just signing, like, let's do this, that's a great idea, and let's figure it out. Just saying those words and being the one to put that in place, that's one thing. But I'm proud over all these people who took that opportunity and actually built something better for themselves and for the team, because people are great. I mean, inherently great. I didn't know that before I got the chance to talk to people that I didn't know and to build these relationships. But just sit down for an hour, just check it out. What do you feel? What do you know about this? People know a lot of stuff. And you know what? All these things that you feel, a lot of other people feel it too. So there's so much that we have in common that we don't talk about. All these common denominators, we have so many. So that's, my pride is in these people taking this further, and that keeps on giving. That's going to be with them. So I'm proud to be a part of that journey. They did all the work. I just asked the question or told them, just do it.
We didn't predetermine, and you didn't share with me what you were going to talk about. I was really hoping you would get into the human element, because the conversations that we have had since we started to know each other since 2016, you are very human centric. And I think that obviously there is, you're like, 74 years old. So there's a lot of time before we met. No, you're not. And if you were, that would be okay. But, you grew so much of trying to figure out how to take into account other people's views, and you became unbelievably introspective and self-aware, but you've always had this human-centric view, and the conversations that we've had have always morphed into that, and not about complaining, not about venting, not about any of those. Maybe sometimes we would do that, but it's about, you've always focused on how you get more out of people, but even more importantly, understanding their view. And I think that that's like, you forget work, forget your profession, forget professionally. I think that's who you are as an individual, right? Like you want to understand and care about the other point of view.
I would say you're right. And I mean, of course, I sit here and it's easy to say. In theory, I fall off the horse all the time. It's like I make mistakes, and because there's so many elements to be a human, being a human, and I try to remember also that goes for everybody. You never know what kind of day someone had up until that point. You don't know what their backstory is, but you know that everyone has one. Everyone's coming from somewhere with their experiences, their baggage, their filter, whatever it is, whatever that, you say something, it goes through a filter of experiences, and you have to, be aware of that. So communication is key. And I know you've got a funny question to towards the end, I think, but we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, so I think this is a good segue into one of my favorite topics about strength finders, and figuring out how to, which is about really doubling down and understanding your strengths and not just getting your weaknesses up, but really doubling down on your strengths.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it becomes important to be self-aware, introspective, to understand how anybody can use those strengths more effectively. So what are, like, from a strength finders themes perspective, what are the top two, three that you have as strengths? Let's talk about those.
So this is really funny, and I think it ties into also a part of my growth and my journey, because you told me to get the book. I got the book. I expensed it, during episode. I started reading it, but I was so, like, I didn't want to get it wrong. Right. So I postponed it, and I was going to do it because, you're going to fill in a form and you're going to choose the right answer. What are the right answers? Like, there are no right answers. Your answers are the right answers. That's the thing. And I think that comes to the entire, view set. When you don't know what's going on, if you're not sure what's going on, and you want to be, well, I don't want to make a mistake. I want to get it right. Well, the thing is, someone else has figured it out by trying. All these failures that people have behind them, that's what's led up to the success that you see. And I think it's becoming more and more, known now, especially when you look in the world of social media, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. You have to stay aware, if you don't remember, that this is like the cream that someone has, or someone sped up a whole process, and you sell yourself when you're going to fix something, the do yourself at home. It takes forever.
Would you say one of your strengths is not answering the questions right away?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of my key strengths. No, but so I did the strength finders test. I did it today, right? I was trying to log on to the Gallup site, and I couldn't get this validation code and la. So I did it today. So here it is. So I'm green and blue. Number one is strategic, and it says you create alternative ways to proceed. Faced with any given scenario, you can quickly spot the relevant patterns and issues. That's number one.
Nice. What about number two?
Number two is positivity, believe it or not. So you have contagious enthusiasm. You are upbeat and can get others excited about what they're going to do.
I think that that one is super interesting. Not that the strategic one isn't, but the positivity. I, I didn't predetermine what you were, what your strengths were, because that's not how the whole thing works. But I would agree, like the enthusiasm and positivity, which is great because that's kind of what this whole podcast is about: being
Yeah.
proud and positive as opposed to
Yeah.
negative. Off the top of your head, can you give an example, maybe in the last couple years, of where your enthusiasm has gotten across? And I would say positivity isn't necessarily about always being positive and looking past issues, because that becomes very difficult for others to operate in when you're not addressing the realities of things. But can you cite an example of maybe where your enthusiasm, positivity has helped and helped get you through some difficult times as a team?
I think that goes like I think you can bring that to the table all the time. I mean, there's always going to be boring stuff. There's always going to be things that you don't want to do. And it's about, get your kids to brush their teeth, right? It's not fun, but let's make it fun. Then, to make it enjoyable. But I think, like, in a tangible example, we mess up all the time. Sometimes we have services that stop working because we made a deployment that wasn't right and we didn't test it thoroughly, whatever it was, stuff that happens. And if we don't have a process in place, it's nobody's fault. Just stay positive. It doesn't matter. It's in the past. You can't change the past. Focus on the present. This is where we are now. So let's move forward. Let's decide together, what do we do? How can we prevent this from happening again? And just stay positive and on point. And that's the thing. And then, there's no.
I mean, I think that's great. I see issues where, if somebody makes a mistake, well, of course you want to learn from that, but focusing too much on it, that doesn't mean that there's no accountability. If that person makes the same mistake 3, 4 times, that's a different issue than making it once. And I totally agree with you that focusing just on the issues, focusing just on that issue that occurred, the negative aspect, doesn't get you anywhere, because it is in the past. Like, you can do a retro on it, but what if it's in the moment where you're like, okay, that happened, now let's solve it, and let's look at how we do this better the next time. But in the moment, you address that. So I totally agree with you that I think that a lot of managers mistake ensuring that there's accountability for that individual with actually realizing that mistakes happen and how do you learn from it. So it's great that you talk about that as part of the positivity and enthusiasm.
And also, accountability is important. I mean, you own the problem. You need to own it and, fess up. But there shouldn't be a punishment for something you did when you did the best you could with the tools you had at hand. And the thing is, if you're a manager and you're upset about something happening, you know what? It's your fault. You're the manager. If this happened, it's because of something that you haven't prepared, tools that you haven't allotted, time frames that have been too tight. Those are all the different things that you as a manager, and ultimately the CEO, it's the CEO's responsibility. And that's the thing. And I think that's important in leadership. And I think you did great at Epis, because you were passing on credit and you were taking the blame. I mean, and that's number one. I mean, super impressive. And that's something that stayed with me ever since I, got to know you better as a leader. And I think that's super cool.
Hey, give credit, take blame. That's key part of a leader. And, as individuals, make sure that you do what you say you're going to do. I think that
Hell yes.
between those two things, it's critically important. Okay, you kind of teased out the fun.
I just wanted to say, there's only one way where you can make 100% sure there won't be any mistakes, and that's to do nothing, right? So that's the thing. Making mistakes is a part of transition. You move somewhere, you change something that is prone to be making mistakes, because that's the thing, especially if you're innovative, especially if you're moving the boundaries. Of course there's going to be mistakes. And I mean, that's one of the beauties. And then one last thing about this, about getting back on your feet again. Anything that happens in life, you get disappointed, something happened, something didn't turn out the way you planned, or something was actually different than you thought it was. All of a sudden, they lift the veil and something you thought was there wasn't, and you get super disappointed. Well, the faster you can reset, your baseline. I mean, that's a negative delta value from an imagined maybe plus 12 where you thought you were down to maybe 0. You experienced a minus 12, and that's what you feel, and you're upset, disappointed, whatever. But you're really on the global chart. You might be on plus 5,000,010. And that's the thing. And you got to realize that where I am now, I'm going to go upwards and forwards. There's no need looking back because that's done.
Nice. So what you're saying is your goal should be to get to 5,000,010.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well,
So
it's a start.
let's move on to the fun questions that I ask each guest. There's 4 of them, and we will start with aisle or window on an airplane.
Now, that's pretty cool because that definitely depends. And I know you have another fun question. And if it's a part of that routine where you feel like I want to have a nap, you want to have the window seat, definitely. But I was a bit upset that middle seat wasn't an option because what gives, man? Am I not like my favorite seat, the middle? Like, hello. Like, if this is a boring one, then maybe this is a fun one.
Okay, I will add aisle, middle, or window for the
Thank
next.
you.
So,
Thank you.
so your answer is it kind of depends. I guess the
very
question that you're alluding to was
Yeah.
how do you prepare for a red eye? I find it interesting that there's a couple different types of people. I feel like you have a red eye 2-3 days in advance. I know people try to get on that time zone. I don't know how you do that if you're
Nice.
going to Australia. Or I don't
Just deal
sleep.
with it.
So I try to make sure that I get as much sleep before. But what do you do? How do you prepare for a red eye?
Yeah, I'm more of shit, it's tomorrow. No, and no, but what I do is I put out all the clothes, everything, so I can sleep as long as I can before I get in the cab or whatever transportation I'm going with. Quick shower, get that in. No coffee. Get to the plane. Try to rest and relax. Try to keep in this state, and then I could probably sleep on the plane, hopefully with a window seat. And then you try to kick it off when you normally would have your day. Then you start with the coffee and you start. And also, of course, I make something to eat on the way because I try to not like break my fast. Then I try to like stay low on that, just a little snack, and then I do the
Right.
breakfast when it's supposed to happen.
Like chicken fingers that you have on the plane, but vegan. What are vegan chicken fingers?
I would probably do a peanut butter sandwich.
Peanut butter. All right. What's your favorite book or TV show that you've read or seen in the last year?
I didn't know I could take a book. So the only but I don't read. So it's we watched a TV show just now actually that's called Spent. Michelle de Schwarte. Don't know if that's correctly pronounced. Absolutely hilarious, super fun. And one that we watched with Joel Edgerton, Dark Matter. If you've seen it, it's on Apple TV now, I think. Pretty good. It's like it's what I like about it is it brings all these tangible different outcomes and it puts it. And what I love about it is the thing that I feel as well, because when I look back on my past and I look at the different ways things have gone that I didn't know in the past, when I've been leaving episodes, for example, and it's been going its own way, and then stuff has been going the other way. So it's like, how would that have been? But now I'm super happy with life. I wouldn't want my life any other way. And I
How
think
did you get from dark matter to you're happy with your life?
No, because dark matter is just about that, about the different
right,
dimension.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
you went from 0 to 5,000,010 in that. So like,
yeah, for those who don't know the show,
I was following you. I was just worried about people who were watching.
Yeah, thank you for taking this party. And also Severance. I look forward to the next season. It hasn't been yet, but that's like mwah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and I think I already know the answer based on some chats that we had recently, but Oxford comma or no Oxford comma?
So, and because I know you told me you don't like it, and I didn't use
it. You gave it away.
Oh, sorry. Outed you. But so everyone's going to suck up to you now. Like, no, absolutely hate it. No, but the thing is, I always thought it was superfluous, because it's like there's already a divider there. You have the and, it's that one and that one. The words are divided. It's fine, and I didn't think it looked good for some reason. But then when I read up on it and the Oxford comma and the examples is, you have a series. For example, if you have a bunch of names, Jim, Jeff, Justin, and Joachim, and we don't have a comma in between. If you're booking a room, for example, you might think, well, do they want 3 rooms or do they want 4 rooms? Because the comma will separate us as entities. Otherwise, it's like, oh, Joachim and Justin, they're a couple. So because it belongs together, and I think that's got to do also with database queries and stuff.
I think people would use a couple of and then use different adjectives at the end. So I've been using AI for the voiceover for the introducing people, and I have to use the comma before the and, or else it doesn't read correctly. So I guess I'm a quasi convert on the Oxford comma, but only for, I guess, selfish reasons to make sure that it sounds good. Yeah, all right, with that, Mr. Joachim Platypus, I really appreciate you joining. And it's been wonderful catching up with you as always. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for having me on.